Okay. Uh, Again, apologize for the camera quality. I'm using the webcam on my laptop. Sorry for the glare behind me. Uh, I made a video response to a guy who basically proclaimed proudly his bigotry, uh, gave the Bible credit and God credit for endowing him with this bigotry. Who, when I made a reply to him, basically just started quoting Bible verses. So I made a video response to him, trying to explain things to him and get him to see a little bit of reason. His response to that was another quote from a Bible verse, basically trying to insult me and call me a fool. It was a verse in Psalms, they are fools who proclaim that there is no God. I don't recall ever saying there is no God. I don't recall denying the possibility that a God may exist. Even though I don't think it's very likely, because all the gods that we know of have been inventions of man in an effort to explain the world around them and their superstitions and fears. So there's no reason for me to believe a God exists. But if all you're going to do is throw Bible verses, I can do the same thing. 1 Peter 3:15 tells you to give answers for the faith that you hold to any who ask, and to do so with courtesy and respect. Depending on the version you read, some say with meekness and fear. But insulting somebody, trying to call them a fool or insinuating that they're a fool because they don't believe what you believe, is not being meek. It is not treating them with courtesy nor respect. The newer translations say courtesy and respect. We have a better understanding of the languages now. Scholars have been working on this for centuries now to further their knowledge and be better able to translate the original writings or the writings that we currently have. But like I said, referring to an Old Testament verse to call somebody a fool, or referring to an Old Testament verse to remain a bigot, while ignoring the New Testament verses that tell you to treat others with courtesy and respect, that tell you to love your enemies more than you love yourself, and thereby treat them in a manner that you would wish to be treated, or like I said, to ignore those verses so that you can act like an ass is ridiculous. It shows me that you don't have any faith. You have no basic understanding of what's in this book. So many people sit there and try to say, well, the old laws don't exist anymore. We can work on the Sabbath. We can eat shellfish. We can wear polyester blends. Because that doesn't matter. We're under a new covenant now. Since Christ came about, it's all love and peace. But then when you ask them to explain their beliefs, all they do is throw Old Testament verses at you as a reason to hang on to these bigotries and attempts at insult. And I would relish an actual conversation that semi-intelligent with a believer, with somebody who can move beyond insults, who can try to work within the framework of the world as we now understand it and the things that we have learned, rather than clinging to superstition and archaic explanations. What the people who wrote this Bible understood of the world around them is infinitesimally small compared to the knowledge that we have of mankind, other animal species, and the world around us today. And if you're going to stick to these ridiculous bigotries that are promoted in this book, you might as well be a flat earther. You might as well no longer call yourself a moderate Christian and become a full fundamentalist, thinking the earth's only 6,500 years old, and start running around killing apostates, as this book tells you to do, killing homosexuals, as this book tells you to do, actively searching out witches to kill them, as this book tells you to do, if you're going to cling to those archaic strictures. And if all you're going to do is quote Bible verses, don't even bother making a comment to any of my videos, because there's no basis to believe any of this stuff is true or has any bearing in today's world, in our current understanding. I mean, to me, it's ridiculous to ignore science, except when you want to. I mean, these people will happily get on a computer and type these insults and promote these bigotries and these hates, and talk about how stupid science is and just trying to fool mankind, while using a device that was created through science. And go out and jump in a car and drive around, created by science, get on their cell phone and text while they're driving, endangering other people's lives, and go to a doctor expecting medical science to cure them and help them, while ignoring any other findings, or any findings that go against what this book has to say. And if that's the type of person you are, there's no sense to have a conversation, because you can't learn anything. And if all you're going to do is throw verses at me that I've already read and attempted not to just base on my understanding, but to research other people's understanding, not just other atheists, but Christians. I've tried to get Christians to explain to me, well, if I don't understand what this verse says, you tell me what it means. You're a believer. You're supposed to understand it. Tell me what it means. And they can't give me any meaning other than what I've already taken from it. Well, if God did it, it was moral and just. We can't understand his reasons, so it was okay. If he commanded these girls to be raped, it was moral for these virgins to be raped, to be forced into a marriage against their will to the people who killed her parents, her brothers, and bear those people's children. It was moral and just. And condemning all of Ham's descendants, or Ham's descendants, however you want to pronounce the word, into slavery for his action was moral and just. Because we can't understand God's plan or his end game. And if that's all you can base things on is might equals right, that God can do whatever he wants because he created us, so if he decides he wants to snuff us out, he can do so. Whatever punishments or that he decides to inflict are just and moral, no matter how atrocious they sound to us, then there's no conversation to be had there. Nobody can learn anything. But if you're willing to have a conversation where I will listen to what you have to say and consider it, yet I expect you to do the same, to give me the same courtesy. If I'm going to listen to you, you hear me out and actually consider what I have to say. I don't expect you just to throw your beliefs out the window and forget them based off a conversation. But I would like for you to at least pay attention to what I have to say, to not completely ignore it, to consider it, if you expect me to listen to your viewpoint. And if all you're going to do is promote bigotry in the name of the Bible or your God, I've got no use for you. There's no conversation to be had there. Intellect has already been thrown out. So don't bother even commenting. Don't just throw Bible verses at me in an attempt to insinuate something about me when you have no idea who I am or how I live my life or what I do. I've had people tell me I was a good Christian because they didn't know I was an atheist, but based off my actual actions and the way I treated other people, They just thought I was a good Christian. Which is kind of funny because this book says not to run around screaming your faith in the streets, but let others know that you're a Christian or faithful by your actions. Whereas most Christians, unless they tell me they're a Christian, I don't assume it. And based off a lot of them's actions, I would never think it. But I'm wide open to a conversation. But just throwing Bible verses out in attempts to insult is not a conversation. That's not a discussion. That's not an explanation. That's not reasons for the faith that you hold, and in conjunction with that faith, the bigotries that faith promotes. And it's definitely not treating others with courtesy and respect, as this book tells you to do.